Before we get started, I'd love to mention our podcast sponsor, Sked Social, the best social media management tool in the business. Honestly, I know I work there and I have to say it, but I actually mean it. And we've actually gone mad this Black Friday. We've got 50% off annual plans plus a free 14-day trial, which is absolutely mental. All you have to do is use the code SKEDBF50. That's SKEDBF50, and you get all that sort of good stuff. So jump on board because, yeah, you're not going to get a price like this ever again, I don't think. So, yeah. While you're at it, join our Slack community. It's pumping. We're almost up to 300 members, and it's not about the number of people, it's about the quality of the people. And they're all in there sharing tips, insights, and all that kind of good stuff. We really want you to be a part of it. If you're in social media, if you're a creative, if you're just keen for a snoop, to be honest, you can come in and have a squiz because we welcome anyone and everyone. And yeah, it's been so cool building this and just seeing the different types of people that are rolling through. So all that sort of stuff will be in the show notes. All right, episode 2 of the Scene podcast. We've got Josh Bailey, founder of CoCo, ex-TikTok, and he's doing some good stuff, honestly. When he was working at TikTok, he saw firsthand what actually works on the platform. So not just the myths, the luck stories, but the real behavior behind why things actually take off. Honestly, I feel like it's such a fresh and honest take, and just his insights and him just being in there and just understanding how businesses and brands operate with creators is just unreal. And it's a bit of a masterclass here, to be honest. So if you're growing your brand on TikTok, you're growing your brand on socials, this episode is 100% for you. I'll just shut up now and just let you enjoy the chat. Josh Bailey, the founder of CoCo, mate, it's been a while since we last caught up, and starting this podcast, I was thinking, we need to start talking about TikTok, we need to start talking about socials, and the man for the job, I thought straight away, top of my head, was you, mate. So first off, how you doing? And secondly, how's the year been? It's been looking pretty crazy from outside looking in.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Firstly, it's looks really exciting, the stuff you're doing at Sked. So super keen to be watching along and seeing what's happening. But yeah, my year has been pretty crazy. I left TikTok earlier in the year to go on to my own little venture, start my own business, which has been really fun. Lots of learnings, lots of ups and downs. Definitely an emotional roller coaster, but I really wouldn't have it any other way. So it's been really awesome. And yeah, it's been a while since we spoke. I think it was down in Melbourne almost big 2 years ago now, I think, or close to maybe. But yeah, I remember going down on that trip. It was sort of the early days when I had started thinking about different ideas and wanting to do my own thing. And I think the catch up I had with you and a bunch of others definitely sparked a lot of inspiration as well. And I really enjoyed it. So keen to be chatting more today.
Mate, likewise, the feeling's mutual. I mean, when we caught up, I was just picking your brain. I felt so annoying because you probably just wanted to talk to a bunch of other people, but I was just like picking your brain, I reckon, for about half an hour on TikTok and how, like, as creators and how to get, like, funky with it. Because obviously, you've worked there for a while and you've worked in socials and advertising and a bunch of different stuff. But what's the biggest misunderstanding brands still have about TikTok, do you think?
That's a great question. I would say there's been so many, like I was at TikTok for nearly 3 years and there were so many big misunderstandings that just impacted so much. Like the old sort of misconceptions were definitely around TikTok being a platform for teenagers dancing or even kids. And from a marketing perspective, like solely an awareness channel and that was it. But I think a lot of those misconceptions have sort of been put to bed now. And I think the largest misconceptions about TikTok today definitely comes from more of a brand or marketing perspective where there's this perception that if you post a few videos, you can get lucky and go viral, rather than TikTok being a platform that really actually rewards consistency and creative clarity over time. And I think that really comes from the fact that there's still this perception that the TikTok algorithm is this crazy, like unpredictable algorithm that just is being gate kept by this major company, when in reality, it's really just very predictable once you build out a content system that really favors audience familiarity over time.
Oh, mate, I love hearing this sort of stuff, mate, because honestly, that's what I've been told as well. It's like, just post more stuff like the quantity on TikTok, and then you're more chance of, going viral or having that moment where a lot of people come and swarm to your videos. But, obviously you working in there and stuff. And I think formats and stuff work better, like create your own sort of stuff, do your own thing. But then I still see people talk about trends and using the trending sounds and using like, what is there a mix of that, or is it just pure do your own thing?
Yeah, I think the brands that I'm seeing do the best on TikTok right now, between those two pillars you said, they probably split it into 80% doing your own thing and really focusing on your core brand values. And then 20% you have that sort of agility to go out and repurpose trends that you feel like are aligned with your brand. But I think at its core, it's yeah, how can you actually still prioritize your own brand values and what you're doing and lead with that and build a content strategy around that instead of constantly having this externally facing perspective of what is everyone else doing? What are my competitors doing? And really just trying to copy and mimic what they're doing. Because that's just going to, lead to the same content being posted by different people and no one wants to see the same content over and over again.
100%. Because I know for a fact, like just talking with different teams and stuff, it's like, yes, you look at your competitors, but you want to have your own spin. And it's like, how does
Mm.
that initial idea and that spark start where it's like, all right, we need to be, obviously, we're talking to the same sort of audience, but what's our unique perspective? Kind of what's the hill that we want to die on type of thing? Is that sort of the approach where you're just like, maybe that's how you form your perspective or your differentiator? Is that even a word or whatever? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think so. Like when it comes to trends and how a lot of brands are thinking about trends, I think I mentioned earlier where they are a driving force, trends for TikTok, but they only really reward established brands nowadays, is what I'm seeing. And that's because these established brands have really built up that identity of their own reoccurring faces. It's almost like TV show characters, but on TikTok. So when they do go and hop on trends, their audiences are so much more bought into the fact that they're the ones hopping onto trends. Almost like how when you see celebrities or movie stars come onto TikTok and start posting trends, it's not the trend itself, it's the fact that these celebrities are posting and repurposing these trends. And so I think it's really similar with brands where these large established brands or teams working for these household names are starting to have a bit more fun with TikTok trends as a smaller part of the overall marketing strategy. And that's what people are loving to see. But if you, yeah, get onto TikTok for the first time and you're a solo e-commerce founder and your number one priority is just pumping out trends, it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, it's always like a tough one to balance, I suppose. But I always love like reverse engineering it. Maybe like what
Mm.
do I like looking at? So if I go on someone's TikTok for the first time and then I feel like I can watch like 50 videos, you know, and it's like, how haven't I discovered this before? And I think like maybe the early side, the early time of when you're like putting stuff out there, you probably don't get that. You probably get a few sticky people because there's a couple of videos. But I think like Mr. Beast, I remember first finding him and just being like, oh my God, there's like 4 years of content that I haven't seen. And like, you know, and I think people who go along for the journey too, you know what I mean? Like the start of something, it feels a bit different. But like, what do you think about like short form and long form? Like, I see like a lot of long form people, like the people who do like long form podcasts and stuff, have like cult like followings. Where TikTok sort of has the same, but not maybe as much like the short form. How do you sort of see that playing out in the
Yeah.
future?
I think there's a really big trend towards longer form content on social media, both like Instagram and TikTok. I think towards the end of my time working at TikTok, the platform recently released up to videos being published for 10 minutes long. I think that was a sign that TikTok is really starting to allow creators to create longer form content, almost like narrative or TV show based series or documentaries. And I think that's also just a reflection of younger generation's own consumption habits on social media now as well. And maybe it's the fact that they are replacing their TV watching time or Netflix watching time with scrolling on TikTok and social media in general. So I think there definitely is a big trend in storytelling. And when I think about it for brands, it's how can they leverage a combination between short form sticky content, like you said, but then also coming up with like literally a season of episodic TV shows for their own TikTok accounts where they have like a pilot as their test and then work on week by week releasing different episodes that sort of build on different characters and staff members and team members and bringing that target audience along through the journey.
Yeah. And do you have to be everywhere, do you think? Like when you're working with creators and brands, do you have to be on every social platform? Do you have to be posting, at least keeping the lights on? Or is it better just not having something if you can't fully commit to it?
That's a great question. I would say personally, it's just whatever you as a business, whatever you feel is genuinely within your capacity. If I had to pick a strategy to move forward with, it would probably be only selecting 1 to 2 different social platforms to really target and focus your time on. In my opinion, if you're posting across Instagram and TikTok and repurposing the exact same videos on both platforms, that almost is a weaker strategy than just focusing on one and purely curating that content for that exact target audience that is on that platform. Because there's so many different types of people that are on TikTok that aren't on Instagram and vice versa. And so really being able to tailor your content to those specific platforms, I think is really worth the extra time to put in.
I love that because when I see someone else, I say if I discover someone on TikTok or Instagram and then I look at the opposite or whatever, and I see that they've got like kind of a similar following, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, they've built up an authority. Like, you know what I mean? If they didn't have a YouTube or whatever, it's all kind of good. I know that they're like established in kind of whatever they're doing.
Yeah, and honestly, it's gotten to the point with TikTok now where, and I mean, obviously, there's a lot of talk about the algorithm and how the algorithm works, but I've seen brands go even a level deeper with, having different content strategies for different social media platforms. But then the level deeper is different content strategies for different TikTok accounts that they launch. And so a few brands that I've seen, they actually create different TikTok accounts for different content series within TikTok. And so they're segmenting their content strategy through different accounts. And that just really shows how nuanced and siloed the content categorization is on TikTok. And when your content starts doing well on a certain account, it really shows that's what you should be doubling down on instead of going out and having all these crazy testing frameworks and testing so many different strategies. When really, once you nail something, stick to it and double down.
Oh, mate, I love that. And when we all talk about like authenticity and stuff, like how does it win? You know what I mean? Like, how do you see it sort of playing out in the future? Like, I feel like with Chat GPT and AI and stuff, it's like people melding their thoughts with AI and things. But like, how do you see, what is authenticity to you when you see someone and you're like, oh, just, they look like themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think authenticity is such an interesting topic in marketing. And like in my opinion, I think the word authenticity has just lost all its meaning. I think it's become one of those buzzwords in the industry that gets thrown around a lot, and rightfully so. Like it probably deserves to be a big strategy in the past, at least. If you think back to the content that was being created 5 to 10 years ago on social media, a lot of it was overly polished and promotional, and brands were just going out there and posting products and what they're doing, their services, and just straight up promoting it. But I think audiences became really strong at being able to dissect and see the difference between those promotional brands and those more authentic brands in that time. And so there was this major shift with brands where there was a reaction that came from that initial audience reaction to their content, which was you're not being authentic enough. And the problem that I had with that was that authenticity became this core strategy for brands to use on social media. But I believe as soon as authenticity becomes intentional, it's performative or it's not authentic. And so the way I see authenticity now, or at least how brands should be looking at it, in my opinion, is that it's really not about being scrappy or laid back or appearing casual or self-aware, because that once again is intentional, and audiences on TikTok are seeing that intentionality, as weird as that sounds. And so pivoting into more of a strategy where you're coming back to your true core brand values and focusing on what we believe in and what do we think that aligns with what we believe in is actually going to resonate with our target audience on TikTok, and then going out and actually creating that content is the truer version of authenticity. That was
Oh,
smart, but I was
no, mate.
head there, but
Mate, I love that because it's hard because I've been thinking about it too, and it's been hard to like articulate, but you've just done a perfect job of that. And it's just, I feel the same way. It feels performative, even if it is a bit scrappy and a bit whatever. It's just, I don't know, and for me, it's
yeah.
like finding that balance in my head around I value this, I value that, and then looking at the post and like dissecting my actual, like LinkedIn I'm talking about, and then just
Mhm.
seeing sort of what resonates and what doesn't, and what kind of energy did I put out there? How long did I spend on that post? Like, because I find sometimes like everyone says it like the less time you spend on some things and it just pops, or you spend a lot of time on things, but I see you win both ways, really. There's no real one way. Is that what you believe as well?
100%. And I also think a thought I just had was with this whole authenticity movement. For me personally, when I'm on social media, I've gotten to the point now where I've spent so much time on it. I'd love to be sold. Like, sell me something. Like, I love the idea of being sold, especially when it's something that I believe in. And so
Yep.
that's sort of the perspective with brands. It's if you truly believe in your product or service and you believe there's a target audience out there that does as well, just go out there and lead with that. And then that is your communication vessel. And what I hate more than being receiving content like that is receiving content that's that's selling me, but it's really masked in this illusion of authenticity. That for me is when I go, no, I have the ick. I'm closing TikTok. Um,
Oh, mate, I feel the same way. What about like taking risks? Like when you're like, oh, like this is maybe the first time I'm sharing an opinion on something where I feel strongly about, but I haven't voiced it yet. Like, do you
mm,
think like having that sort of sinking feeling in your gut before you click post sometimes is a good thing or a bad thing?
yeah, that's a great question. I would say it's a good thing mostly because I think overall brands probably aren't taking enough risks on TikTok. So if you have that inner gut feeling of nervousness before posting, it probably means it's going to perform better than the majority of your other content. And I think also like you care more a lot you care a lot more about your content than anyone else does. And so the feeling that you have when you post content is already tenfold compared to what anyone else who's viewing your content is going to feel from it. So if you want someone to feel a lot from your content, you need to be going absolutely bonkers before, as you click post. So I think the impact of your content almost gets diluted from the stage at which you're posting in your own mind to what then viewers are seeing. Because in your minds, you have your brand context, you've filmed this, you've produced this, so there's so much more love and care for this piece of content. But as soon as you put it out there, the majority of people are seeing it for the first time. They don't know who you are, who your products and services are, anything. And so, I think yes, to your question, having that sinking feeling or nervousness is probably a great sign that you're posting something that might perform pretty well.
I love that. And when people hit your profile, do you need things to be clear? So like around like your service or your offering or whatever it is, like,
Yeah.
especially for brands, it's like, yes, you might do all this cool stuff, but like, can you be clear with the messaging on sort of what you're trying to achieve?
That's a really great question and a contentious point. I would say it depends on where you're focusing your content in the marketing funnel. I know that sounds basic, but for awareness content strategies, I would say try not to focus on your products and services at all. Don't even think about them. The number one thing I'd be thinking about with that top of funnel content is how can I engage and interact with as many people as possible? And so whether that's entertainment or education or just relatability, it's how can I put out these pieces of content that's just going to cast the widest net possible. And then as you start slowly moving down the funnel into your middle of funnel, you can start thinking about more behind the scenes, founder led content or informative content. And that's when you can start weaving in a few different points or topics around your products and services. But then it's not until that lower funnel content when you really are starting to get into the, direct calling out your products and services or your testimonials and in UGC type content. So yeah, overall for the majority of content on TikTok, I would say try and weave in your products and services in creative ways, but definitely don't be too overt with it.
100%. Because I think as soon as you feel that feeling that you're getting sold to, I think
Mm,
you get lost, don't you? And then you probably don't trust to go back or give it that more dwell time next time it comes up in your feed or
yeah.
whatever.
I think the greatest way to look at it as well is that TikTok is structured the exact same way as any other entertainment platform like Netflix or YouTube, where let's think about Netflix as an analogy. When you and I go and sit down to watch a Netflix series, there's no chance in hell we're sitting down and turning on episode one thinking that we're going to get sold to. We're purely there for an entertainment purpose. And that's the same with TikTok, where every 4 videos is an organic piece of content. So for those 4 videos, there shouldn't be an ounce of product or services or selling in that dynamic. When you get that ad slot, that's when there's that feeling of sales. And that's fine because, that's how these platforms make their money. But for Netflix or YouTube, the premise is before I watch a YouTube video, I have to watch an ad for 15 seconds. For TikTok, I get to go straight onto the platform and get the entertainment straight up. And so, as a brand, if you're merging the lines between product and sales, but then organic and paid content, it's just a really bad user experience. And it's essentially like you creating a Netflix series and then promoting your your products and services through the actual episodes. It's not a nice experience at all for the viewer.
I love that. And is there a way that you like simplify things and teach people around just like kind of make content for that platform type of thing of like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like when you really like, simplify things and dumb it
Yeah.
down, it's just like that kind of always makes the most sense. Hey,
100%. I think the way I dumb it down to the dumbest form ever would probably be for platforms like Instagram organic or TikTok organic would be think about who your target audience is and then who they are on each platform and then what do they want to see and then provide them with exactly that. That is it. It's very oversimplified, but if you can then take just those 3 or 4 steps and actually apply it to your own brand or your niche, that'll put you ahead of so many other brands that are just posting ads and UGC content onto their organic socials and getting 200 views.
what about for someone who looks at content all day, works in the industry? How do you like new ideas and stuff? I tend to find like sometimes I do the best stuff when I don't even look at what anyone else is doing, and it's just like I'm focused in on me, and that's kind of what I see it to be. And it might be so different than everyone else, or it could be the same. I've got no idea. But like I find like that just like doing your thing kind of helps a bit more. It helps me, you know what I mean? And like it helps me tell my story and stuff. So I feel like that sort of strategy kind of works. But have you had similar experiences or anything like that?
Yeah, I think for me, with coming up with ideas, my best ideas definitely come when I'm not actively trying to come up with ideas. And I think that's exactly what you said there. And it's probably gone to the point, it's probably not a good thing. And a lot of my friends call me out on it when we catch up, but my mind is almost in a constant state of just taking information from my day to day and reverse engineering it into social media ideas or campaigns for brands or clients, whether it's a content creator's video or a scene from a TV show that I'm watching, or even just a conversation with a friend. I'm almost like always thinking as like a baseline state, how can I take this insight or this thought that I've just had and actually just repurpose it for a social media campaign? Um, yeah, it can make dinner with me sometimes very boring, but yeah.
It's a sick obsession. I feel the same way too. It's like everything that happens, it's just like it could be something. And it's not
Mm,
the brain's always firing, but like in saying that, like doing my research into social media and stuff, I feel like it's probably one of the loneliest, if not the loneliest, um, industry where people feel disconnected. And it's weird because it's like a super connected online world. But like, how do you how do you think about like mental health and sort of being in a reactive sort of space as well, where it's like you always have to be on, even though you love it, you know?
that is really, yeah, that's really difficult. I'm not even sure if I'm the best person to answer him, but I would probably say the biggest difficulty I've found with the industry is just how externally facing it is, which I think was your point. Where if I try to think about any other industry or line of work, there is no other line of work where you're constantly being shown the very top performing campaigns, ideas, or just bodies of work in front of your face all the time. And I feel like it just creates this sickening feeling of always, I guess, comparing yourself to the best, which can be good, but it's sort of in your own perception, the best is being brought down to like the baseline level of performance where you just think that this is what's normal on social media and then this is what's happening and this is what I should be doing. But in reality, it really is you're viewing the very best pieces of content or campaigns that are out there in the world every single day. And so it can get quite disheartening or discouraging to feel like this is something you should be doing as a brand or my team should be getting on top of this. When in reality, a lot of these brands that are doing the best, they're investing so much time, money, and resources into this. And so it's definitely not some overnight sensation or success either. It's something that's really been built up over a long period of time.
I love that. It's seeing the actual realities of what people have at their disposal and resources. Like if there's a team of 50 and 60 people who've studied all their life in this profession to do something, they can probably move the needle a bit. But
Yeah.
what are some like underestimated metrics that matter, do you think, that you see in socials where it's like people maybe chasing the wrong things all the time, where it's like, yeah, is there any sort of undervalued metrics where you're like, you know, if you can get that right, that's kind of a good sign?
I would say retention and watch time over views would probably be the biggest one. So instead of thinking about just the number of views you're getting for an individual video, maybe thinking about the retention or the total watch time of each video throughout the length of it instead of the number of individual people's watching your videos. Um, and I would say that's probably just comes down to an obsession with going viral. But in my opinion, I think it's a lot more valuable for a brand to, let's say if we're comparing brand A to brand B, and brand A posts 100 times in a year and really poor results for 99 of the videos, but one video gets a million views and goes viral. And then brand B posts 100 videos as well. And every single video gets 5,000 views, and the retention is really strong in all those videos. Even though brand B had half the amount of total views, 500,000 compared to a million, I would say that situation there is so much more valuable because they've built up this longer term community and baseline moats of audience members that are so much more likely to be engaged or make a purchasing decision when they are retargeted instead of, yeah, this crazy number of people that watch once and never view the content again. So, yeah, I'd probably say underrated metric would be retention or just overall watch time per video instead of just your top line video views metrics.
I love that because there's always like cheap ideas to get actual views and stuff and try and go viral. It sounds like you've got some opinions on that. Would love to hear that. Like when people say that, like I want virality and I want this and I want this to go viral. What's normally your response to them? Is that just build it up and build that moat?
Yeah, I would say like overall, don't treat going viral like it's some pinnacle end goal or finish line. And to that, I think actually knowing how to respond to going viral is 100 times more important than actually going viral itself, which sounds weird, but I think that's what
Explain that. Yeah.
most brands probably miss that where they go viral and they get a million views and then they all, cracking open a bottle of Moe and that's it. That's the end. But that's really just the beginning because your brand going viral is the number one biggest signal you can get on what you should be doubling down on or working towards and chasing in your content strategy. But most people are still viewing virality like it's this, cause of luck. And as soon as you accept that going viral is luck, you're really not attributing any of your own work or content strategy to that virality. And then you can't take the insights from that content to inform future videos or concepts when that's, what you really should be doing when you go viral is thinking about what is it about this video that really related to these audience members on TikTok or on Instagram. How can we now actually flesh that out into an ongoing series, for example? And then over time, that is really how you can then start to compound and build that more reputable brand moat instead of just those one-off viral moments.
And what about when dealing with data? How much is data and how much is gut feel or an experience around like, all right, we've got these things, but I think if we just keep pushing in this direction, we might break this barrier or jump this hurdle where it might unlock something else. Is there moments like that, or is it just more look at the data, go through all this sort of stuff and be like, test and learn, I suppose, with the data that you got?
Yeah, and great question as well. I would say it's a combination where you can start initially posting through your gut feeling and lean in towards what you feel like will work best. Obviously, if you're working with a brand strategist or an agency, leading with the insights that they've brought to you onto what type of content you should be posting. But once it reaches a certain point where the views aren't there, the engagement isn't there, not really holding on to that and that belief that might be slowly fading and knowing how to notice that this isn't working and then how to change and pivot. And so that's where I definitely think then after you've given it a few weeks of posting consistently, if it's not working, you definitely should be testing new things and looking at the data. Because yeah, you will hear many different opinions, but in my opinion, which is just another opinion, if you are posting a certain amount of content for a few weeks and even up to a month and it's not working, it's definitely a sign that the content isn't resonating with the platform instead of, just not being consistent enough or not giving it time.
I love that. And how do you think about when you try and test new things? So say if you're a big brand or whatever, you
Mm.
can't really, is it harder to then test things, or do you have to do a lot of stuff behind the scenes in terms of, different audiences, and you got different resources, I suppose, but yeah, it must sort of just get a little bit different in terms of how big the business and your audience is, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think big businesses have a lot of struggles with social media. It depends on just like, the internal approval process is one. But if there's no real, red tape or issues there, then I think if something's already really working well for you as a big brand, why change it? Don't change anything. But if things aren't working for you as a big brand, I think the number one thing you should be thinking about is how can we show up as a small brand and be really fun and creative and different, because that's how the small brands have started to grow so rapidly on TikTok is by acting like a small brand and having fun and doing different things. I think that's probably one of the biggest things holding larger established brands back on social media. It's their own perception of what they think their brand is and how it should be showing up on these social media platforms, and that's just causing a complete halt on their growth on these platforms.
You must see it a lot, obviously, with the work that you're doing at CoCo, but like brands hesitating to hire full-time creators where you'd probably see it in your head around like, oh, if I just put you with these people and they did this for you, like it would change a lot. Why do you still see brands sort of hesitating? Is it kind of like, it feels like the new wave is like happening now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the biggest reason why a lot of brands still are hesitating to hire full-time creators or even just in-house creators is that there's a massive trust gap. And it's understandable. Like, it's very difficult for brands to hire and find creators that truly understand their story, their niche, and even their target audience's language. And placing all of that trust into a full-time hire does feel really risky. But in my opinion, it's no different to any other hire, especially now that, we're all talking about how important content is and it's at the core of marketing and social media in general. And so I think there's definitely that perception of less risk with outsourcing, various creators and working with different content creators and agencies. But in my opinion, that really does end up causing a lot more harm in the long term. And then when you think about more established household names or franchises, like we were just talking about, I think there's also a big structural hesitation as well. This idea that hiring a creator full time, it is a brand new category of role within marketing, and it's never really done before. And so that internal approval process and allowing for that space to open up within a team that's almost operated the same way for decades is going to take a bit of time. Um, and I think overall, most marketing teams probably were never built to have someone producing daily social media content in house as well. And so actually managing and directing that person as well takes a bit of time and I guess shift in actually accommodating for that.
I love that because I see it personally through just doing the Funny Business podcast and working with the guys at like Heaps Normal, where they sponsored our pod for 2 years, but we were more like sales as well. Like we'd get a lot of people come into the DMs and we'd have a lot of introductions and things like that. And that worked so much better because felt part of the team. It's almost like a brand ambassador type of thing, but you're involved and you're in there. And I just see so much benefit because I've witnessed it firsthand. And it's like, and then you see this type of things that they've done and you're like, oh, it makes sense because they're taking risks in a different way, but they had the people to direct us, and they like everyone there was like switched on and knew what was going on, and that really helped.
Oh yeah. I'd love to get your thoughts on why do you think most brands are still holding back from bringing creatives in-house into their own teams?
I think it's the same thing that you said, mate. I think it's like understanding, like it's hard to direct someone if you're not really sure what to do and budgets and just the way where the world is at the moment with just in like cost of living and stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
I really need to see like the value in it. And it's like, all right, I get it. But like, I think a lot of this stuff is the long-term stuff as well. It's more like the trust that you build with people. Like at Scared at my role, I feel like I started as a content manager and I'm sort of morphed into this different role where it's like a community content partnerships type of thing. And I think that's kind of how smart companies are going to do it around just like morphing into different roles because they see the value that it provides. And like you were saying, it's like you see something that works. It's like anything. It's like you want to double down on it, don't you?
100%. No, that's such a good point. Like, I think what you're also saying is that like as you're embedded into a role over time, you're making these learnings and you're shifting what you're doing and you're almost improving over time. So like the value of any in-house hire, if executed correctly, only compounds and improves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think like vibes, like people just say vibes and stuff. I think like it's like values and energy. I see it in terms of if someone's keen and eager and they're just good people, like I think like they'll
Mm.
go a long way in terms of like a team environment, especially with content and stuff. I feel like that's so important to be like optimistic and positive and you know what I mean? Because you're like, especially if you're on camera and stuff, it's like if you're surrounded by people who are constantly just that could even drag creators down a bit because they feel like they can't sort of maybe flex or experiment and stuff. Because I feel like that's a lot of where the good stuff happens.
100%. And honestly, I think that's like one of the most important things that brands that do hire or even work with creators on like briefing, for instance. I think that's the biggest thing they're missing is almost like not letting their creators feel like their own co-founders. And that's something I try to tell brands a lot is like make your creators feel like your co-founders. Bring them in, make them understand all the complexities, the context about exactly who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, so that when they do go out and they put on the hat of having this completely externally facing role that they're representing that brand, they really truly know what they're talking about and I guess the why behind the content they're creating instead of just reading a script and a brief and then going out there and shooting.
100%. And when you know the people, I feel like I love selling people. That's my favorite thing to do.
Mm.
If I know someone does a good job at something and they're my friend and I work for them, it's so easy for me to, because it's real, you know, and you're talking about authenticity. It's like, I don't know, it makes things easier. And it's like, you're almost like, you're an idiot if you don't go with them kind of thing. You know what I mean? In your head, because you're that confident kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like, before I let you go, I'd love, we got to touch on it, I think, AI in content and content
Mm.
creation. How are you sort of seeing it at the moment and how do you sort of see it evolving and yeah, all that type of stuff?
AI, yeah, AI is an interesting topic in content specifically. I would say for me and how I use AI at the moment in my content process is honestly fairly basic. So I would use ChatGPT or Claude, any of your regular models, and use it for research, planning, creative briefing, and strategy. I think it's a really powerful tool to streamline that process. And I think for me as a solo founder, it's almost someone, or I should say something to bounce ideas off of when I'm thinking on my own. But so for the process part of creating content, I think it's excellent. And when it comes to the actual content itself, so like AI content or AI GC instead of user generated content, I think at the moment it's getting a lot of light and a lot of buzz. I think that will very quickly die down, and I think it'll almost fizzle out into its own subcategory of content where you might have fitness content or health content and health creators. I think AI content and AI creators would just become another subgenre of content overall instead of this dominating force. Because at the moment, it's all the fun stuff out there with Jake Paul is just everywhere. But I think that'll slowly die down, and then people will go, actually, it is just like any other piece of content. It's not about how it's made; it's about how does it speak to me and how can I relate to it a lot more.
I love that, man. I was actually, there's a dude called The Professor on YouTube. I don't know if you've heard him. He's,
I have,
and
yeah. I don't know
he,
if I've watched his content, but I've heard of him.
I wanted to hate AI music, man. I was just like, you know what? It's not people doing it. How can it feel real? And then after hearing all these different covers of all these, like even metal songs and things like that, it is insane. Like they do like soul Motown versions of stuff. And it's just, I was like, this can't be like real, like this is just, and I think the word he uses is like engineered by,
Yeah,
so it's like maybe, because I think prompting and like how you think about, because you're right, like the AIGC is just shit. Like I looked at the, is it Meta AI? They've got that's like the TikTok feed where you go up and it's just all the different AI videos. I signed up for
yeah,
it a couple of days ago.
yeah,
I couldn't really get into that. I was looking at that and I'm like, that doesn't feel like up to it yet. Well,
yeah.
for me anyway, it feels a bit like, oh, this is too early. Like it's just a bunch of trash. Slop. Is that what they're calling it? Slop?
Slop, yeah, brain rot, slop,
Yeah.
track. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm with you, mate. I think like in terms of structural thinking and getting things out there, it helps with like thoughts, hey, in terms of your strategy and things like that. Do you think you can create like tone of voices on platforms like that and then, sort of tweak into content, or is that just a no-no for you?
Maybe. I mean, I think the music analogy you gave was really, really strong, where does it really matter how the music was created or the content was created if if the end product gives off a similar feeling or an emotional reaction or has the same impact? So whether or not, like, are we thinking and more focused on the process of the content or the outcome of the content and what the content actually is and that impact it has on the consumer? I think that's probably where most people are going to actually focus their attention on in 10 years' time, where no one's going to be able to tell the difference between real and AI generated content. And maybe with the same with music, where if you're scrolling through Spotify and you play a song and you listen to it and add it to your playlist and you love it, and then a week later a mate tells you it's AI, you might have a few reservations initially, but you don't love the song any less. You still listen to it every day in the car on the way to work. So
It's just weird, isn't it? Like thinking about the future, I'm sort of a one day at a time sort of operator, but like whenever we talk about AI and stuff, but then I think about it where we are now, like we never would have thought like growing up that, you know, I'm 34 or whatever, show my age here, but it's like internet really wasn't a thing until like a bit later on. Like we were all playing outside and stuff. I feel like these days it's hard to, like, kids are just so connected online and know how to use everything. And I think like the future of work and just like what people are interested in building careers and stuff, they're probably going to need these skills. But like, I don't know, how do you put boundaries around that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't have boundaries around me. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, imagine being like
Yeah.
15. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But imagine being 15 or whatever and just knowing like the job that you're going to have in 15 years' time probably doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think it's scary. I think the rise of iPad kids is relentless. They're everywhere, so got to watch out. But yeah, I'm the same with you. I think I I tend to be a bit more of a one day at a time guy instead of looking too far forward into the future. But maybe I should probably put my lens out there and figure out what's going on so I can be better prepared. But who knows?
Ignorance is bliss sometimes, I reckon.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, Josh, thank you so much, mate. This has been an absolute pleasure to pick your brain. And for all the listeners out there, go check out CoCo, doing some good stuff.
Thank you, Lucky. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure and a lovely chat.